My name is Clara Hastings. I'm 21 years old. I never imagined the night my stepmom opened her backpack would change everything. It was a quiet Thursday evening. Dad was away on a business trip, the kind of trip that stretched for days, leaving the house feeling colder than usual. I had just finished unpacking my things from college. Home was supposed to be a place where I could breathe again, where the weight of heartbreak and betrayal from the last few months could slowly lift. But sometimes, the past clings like a shadow you can't shake. I was sitting on the worn-out leather couch in the living room, scrolling through my phone absent-mindedly, when Eleanor came in. My stepmom, Dad's new wife, the woman who had been a mystery to me since they married 2 years ago. She moved differently than I expected, graceful but guarded, like she was holding back storms I couldn't see. Eleanor set her bag down on the floor and sank into the armchair across from me. The air felt thick. I watched as she slowly unzipped her backpack, pulling out a few small things: lip balm, a notebook, and then something else. Her hands trembled. I caught a glimpse of something wrapped in fabric, tucked deep inside. I don't know why, but something about the way she looked startled me. It was like she was scared someone would see what was inside. Then she paused. Her eyes met mine for a brief second, wide, almost pleading. Then she shoved the object back inside and zipped the backpack shut. "Clara," she said softly, but her voice cracked, "do you mind giving me a moment alone?" I shook my head, but my heart was pounding. I wanted to say no, to demand answers, but my throat went dry. A sudden cold wave of unease swept through me. I wanted to believe this was just some private moment, but something told me otherwise. My gut twisted with a mix of fear and suspicion. I waited for a while, pretending to be absorbed in my phone, but my eyes kept darting to her backpack. Finally, I stood up. "Eleanor," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "what's in your bag?" "Please." Her face paled, and for a second, I thought she might bolt. Instead, she sighed and reached into her backpack again, this time pulling out a small, sealed envelope. The kind you don't just carry for no reason. The kind that holds secrets. She hesitated, then handed it to me. I don't want you to worry," she whispered, "but this is something I need to deal with. And I thought you should know." I stared at the envelope, confused and terrified all at once. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Dad. "Call me when you can. It's important." The room seemed to shrink around me. I looked back at Eleanor. Her eyes were glossy with unshed tears. "I think you need help," I said quietly. Maybe I should call someone." Her face twisted with pain, and then suddenly, she was shaking violently. She clutched her chest. I froze. "Eleanor? Are you okay?" she gasped. My mind was racing. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The operator's calm voice cut through my panic like a lifeline. "Stay with me, ma'am. Help is on the way. Tell me what happened." I explained everything: the trembling, the envelope, the look in her eyes. Minutes felt like hours. When the paramedics arrived, Eleanor was pale but breathing. Before they left with her, she gave me a look that said so much more than words ever could. That night, I couldn't sleep. What was inside that envelope? Why had it shaken her so badly? And most of all, what would happen next? I knew, somehow, that my life was about to spiral into something I never could have imagined. The next morning, the house felt eerily silent. Too quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Eleanor was still at the hospital, and Dad hadn't come back from his trip yet. I sat at the kitchen table, clutching a lukewarm cup of coffee, staring at my phone as if it might suddenly give me the answers I desperately needed. My mind kept drifting back to the envelope. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What kind of secret could be so heavy, so dangerous, that it would bring Eleanor, who always seemed so composed, down to her knees? And then there was Dad's message: "Call me when you can. It's important." Important? What was so urgent that he couldn't even wait till he got home? I called him, hands trembling. "Hey, Clara." His voice was tight, strained with something I couldn't place. "I heard about Eleanor. Is she okay?" "Dad, what's going on? What's in that envelope? You told me it was important." He sighed, and for a moment, I could hear the hum of the airport terminal in the background. "There are things you don't know about Eleanor," he said carefully. "Things from before I met her. Things that could hurt our family if they came out." "What things?" I asked, frustration bubbling up. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I'm supposed to trust you." "I know, Clara. I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting you." His voice cracked slightly. "But now, I'm not so sure what's safe anymore." I hung up, heart pounding with more questions than ever. Later that day, the police called. They wanted to speak with me about the call I made last night. The paramedics had found something in Eleanor's bag that warranted investigation. I swallowed hard. "What did they find?" I asked. The detective's voice was clinical, but I caught an edge of concern. "It's better if you come down to the station and tell us everything you know." I agreed, though my legs felt weak. At the station, I recounted every detail I could remember. The trembling, the envelope, the look in Eleanor's eyes. They took notes, exchanged glances. Then the detective pulled out a small plastic evidence bag with something folded neatly inside. "It was wrapped in fabric, hidden deep in her backpack," he said. "We believe it's linked to a missing person case from 2 years ago." My breath caught. Missing person? How could Eleanor be connected to that? On the drive home, my mind raced. I remembered how Eleanor always avoided questions about her past, how her eyes darted nervously whenever I asked about her family. Was she hiding something darker than I ever imagined? When I got back, the house felt colder still. I sat in my room, clutching a faded photograph I found tucked inside one of my dad's old albums, a picture of Eleanor, standing beside a woman I didn't recognize, both smiling with forced cheer. A chill ran down my spine. I was trapped between worlds. The past I thought I knew and the secrets lurking in the shadows. And somehow I was caught in the middle. That night, sleep felt impossible. My mind was a cyclone of questions and half-formed fears. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's events like a haunting melody I couldn't escape. Eleanor, my stepmom, was suddenly a stranger. The woman I thought I was beginning to understand had a past wrapped in secrets that threatened to unravel everything I believed about my family. Why had Dad hidden this from me? Was he protecting me, or was he protecting her? The photograph I found in Dad's album haunted me most. Eleanor standing beside a woman I didn't know, both smiling in a way that didn't reach their eyes. Who is she? And how did she vanish without a trace? The missing person case. I searched online, trying to piece together clues. The news articles were sparse but chilling. A woman named Lila Monroe, last seen 2 years ago in a small town near where Eleanor grew up. No leads. No closure. A knot formed deep inside me. If Eleanor was connected to Lila, how could I reconcile the stepmom who baked cookies with me, who tried so hard to make peace, with the woman possibly carrying a dark, hidden truth? The next morning, I tried to talk to Dad. I needed answers, no matter how painful. "Dad, I found a picture of Eleanor with someone named Lila Monroe," I said, voice trembling. His face went pale. "That's complicated, Clara," he said carefully. "Eleanor and Lila knew each other. It was a long time ago. Why didn't you tell me? Why keep this from me?" He sighed deeply, eyes heavy with regret. "Because it wasn't just a friendship. There were things, mistakes made. Things Eleanor's trying to make right. I thought it was best to keep it buried. But now she's in the hospital, and the police are involved. This can't just stay buried anymore." Dad nodded slowly, his jaw clenched. "You're right." Days passed with tension crackling like static in the air. Eleanor was released from the hospital, but stayed mostly in her room, avoiding everyone. I caught glimpses of her staring at the envelope, the fabric-wrapped secret that now felt like a ticking bomb. One evening, unable to hold back, I knocked on her door. "Eleanor, can we talk?" She opened the door slightly, eyes red but resolute. "What do you want, Clara?" "I just want to understand. I want to know the truth about Lila. About the envelope. About you." She hesitated, then stepped aside, inviting me in. Inside, the room was dim, smelling faintly of lavender and old books. Eleanor sat down on the bed, took a deep breath. "Lila was my sister," she said quietly. "But not by blood. We grew up together, inseparable. Until one day, She disappeared. No one knew why. No one knew where she went. Why did you hide this from Dad? From me? I was scared. Scared it would break everything. I thought if I kept it hidden, maybe the past wouldn't touch us. But it already did, I whispered. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I didn't know the envelope was still here. It's a letter Lila wrote me before she left. It holds everything, why she vanished, the danger she was running from. My heart ached. I want to see it, I said gently. Eleanor reached into her bag, pulled out the letter, fragile and yellowed with time. As I unfolded it, I felt the weight of her past settle around us like a shadow. The letter was more than words, it was a confession, a plea, a warning. And it was just the beginning. The room was heavy with silence as I held the delicate letter in my hands, Eleanor watching me like a guardian of secrets long buried. I unfolded the fragile paper slowly, afraid to tear it, afraid of what I might read. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, like someone writing with a trembling heart. Dear Eleanor, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, or worse. I never wanted to leave without saying goodbye, but I had no choice. The people I trusted the most turned into shadows that hunted me. I'm scared, Eleanor. Scared that they will find you too. You have to be careful. There are things I can't explain here, things that I hope you never have to face. I'm sorry for leaving you alone, but I promise I never stopped loving you. Find the truth. Protect yourself. Love always, Lila. My chest tightened. The letter was more than a farewell. It was a cry for help, a warning. Eleanor wiped a tear from her cheek. I never knew who they were, she whispered. All I know is that after Lila disappeared, strange things started happening. Phone calls with silence. Shadows outside windows. And then, the police stopped looking. I looked up, heart pounding. Did you tell Dad any of this? She shook her head. No. I was afraid of losing everything. Afraid he'd think I was crazy. I clenched the letter tighter. How did you get this back? Eleanor's eyes darkened. It was mailed to me recently. No return address. Just that envelope. That's when everything started falling apart. A sudden knock interrupted us. Dad stepped in, face pale but steady. I think it's time we face this together, he said quietly. For the first time since the chaos began, I felt a flicker of hope. But beneath that hope was a creeping dread. If Lila's disappearance was just the tip of the iceberg, what else were we about to uncover? And would we be ready for the truth waiting beneath the surface? The three of us sat together in the living room, the letter between us like a fragile bridge connecting past and present. Dad's eyes, usually so steady and calm, flickered with something I hadn't seen before. Fear, maybe, or regret. We need to find out who sent the letter, he said finally. If Lila's enemies are still out there, they might be watching us right now. Eleanor nodded, swallowing hard. I thought I was safe here. But now, I'm not so sure. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. My world was cracking open, revealing shadows I never knew existed. For the first time, I saw my stepmom not as a stranger, but as a woman haunted by loss and fear. Someone who needed me, even if she never said it out loud. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Lila, about the sister Eleanor never stopped loving, about the silence after she disappeared, and the danger still lurking just beyond our doorstep. My phone buzzed suddenly, an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. A low, distorted voice whispered, "Stop digging, Clara. Some truths are better left buried." The line went dead. My heart pounded. The warning was clear. I was no longer just a bystander. I was part of the story now, but I refused to back down. If uncovering the past meant risking everything, then so be it. For Eleanor, for Lila, for myself. Because sometimes, the only way to heal is to face the darkness head-on, even if it threatens to consume you. I stared at my phone long after the call had ended, the words echoing in my mind like a dark echo bouncing off the walls of my soul. Stop digging, Clara. Some truths are better left buried. The line was dead, but the threat was very much alive. For the first time since Eleanor's collapse, I felt something fierce ignite inside me, not just fear, but resolve. Whatever shadows were circling our family, I wasn't going to let them win. But I also knew I couldn't face this alone. The next morning, I reached out to my best friend, Maya, the one person who'd seen me through my darkest moments, including the breakup that brought me home in the first place. Maya didn't hesitate. "I'm coming over," she said. "We'll figure this out together." Her presence was a lifeline. Together, we started piecing through every detail Eleanor and Dad had shared, reading the letter again and again, trying to find anything we might have missed. That's when I noticed it, a small symbol, almost like a signature, hidden in the corner of the letter's last page. A delicate, looping glyph I didn't recognize. I snapped a photo and sent it to Maya. "Looks like some kind of mark," she replied. "Maybe a gang sign? Or a secret code?" That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows moved just beyond the windows, and every creak of the house set my nerves on edge. I kept the letter close, like a talisman against the unknown. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. With shaking hands, I answered. This time, a woman's voice, calm but urgent, whispered, "Clara, trust no one. Your stepmom's past is darker than you think. Meet me tomorrow at the old pier. Alone." Then the call ended. My blood ran cold. Who is she? And could I trust her? The line between friend and foe blurred faster than I ever imagined. But the choice was mine. To run away, or to dive deeper into the darkness and risk everything to find the truth. The night was colder than I expected, the breeze from the nearby water biting through my jacket as I approached the old pier. The city lights flickered behind me, but here, away from everything familiar, the silence felt heavy, almost suffocating. My heart hammered in my chest as I scanned the shadows, searching for the woman who had called me. I didn't know if I should be scared or hopeful. Then, a figure stepped forward from behind a stack of weathered crates. She was older. Maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to carry 1,000 untold stories. "You're Clara," she said without greeting. I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "Who are you?" "Call me Marianne," she replied. I knew Lila. A shiver ran down my spine. This was no coincidence. Marianne pulled out a small folder and handed it to me. Inside were photos, Lila with a different face, more guarded, less carefree, documents, and a map marked with locations I didn't recognize. She was hiding from something much bigger than anyone realized, Marianne said. A secret network. People who'd go to any lengths to keep it buried. I clutched the folder, feeling the weight of the past press down on me. "Why come to me?" I asked. "Because you're the only one who can finish what Lila started," Marianne said, her voice grave. "But you need to be careful. They're watching." Before I could ask more, footsteps echoed behind us. I turned sharply, only to see a shadow vanish into the fog. "Go," Marianne urged. "And don't look back." As I hurried away, adrenaline surged through me, but so did a deep, gnawing fear. Back home, I locked my door and stared at the folder. The line between friend and enemy was dissolving. And with every new revelation, I felt myself slipping further into a world I never asked to enter. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stop now. The folder Marianne had given me felt heavier than any burden I'd ever carried. It wasn't just paper and photographs. It was the key to a past I never wanted to uncover but couldn't ignore. I spent the night poring over every detail, the words and images blurring as exhaustion settled in. Yet, sleep was impossible. My mind raced between fear and determination, heartbreak and hope. Lila was more than Eleanor's missing sister. She had been involved in something dangerous, a secret network Marianne called the Veil. From what I could piece together, it was a shadowy group that controlled lives from behind the scenes, manipulating people, information, even families. I felt the weight of it crushing me. How had Eleanor survived all this and kept it hidden? The next day, I confronted Dad. "Tell me everything about the Veil," I demanded, voice shaking but firm. He looked at me like I'd grown into someone else overnight. "I wanted to protect you," he said quietly. "But it's time you knew. The Veil isn't just a rumor. It's real. And it's been tearing our family apart for years." He went on to explain how Lila had stumbled onto their secrets and paid the price. How Eleanor had tried to shield us, hiding the letter and trying to keep the past buried. But the network's reach was vast and their threats real. Why come to me? I asked again. Why involve me now? Because you have to finish what Lila started. Because you're stronger than you think. His words echoed in my mind, but the truth was, I felt anything but strong. That night, I got another message. This time, a photo of Eleanor's backpack lying open on the floor, the letter missing. Someone was watching us. Closer than I thought. Fear and resolve twisted inside me. I was trapped in a dangerous game where the stakes were more than just family secrets. They were life and death. But I couldn't turn back. Because some truths, no matter how painful, demanded to be found. The image of Eleanor's open backpack flashed in my mind like a warning siren. The letter, the key to everything, was gone. Someone had been inside our home. Someone close enough to know where to find it. I couldn't shake the dread that wrapped itself around my chest like icy fingers. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house sent me jolting upright, heart hammering in my ears. Dad noticed. "Clara, you need to be careful," he said one morning, his eyes heavy with worry. "They're watching you. Watching us." I nodded but felt helpless. How do you fight a ghost? An invisible enemy whose power reached far beyond the walls of this house? Eleanor remained withdrawn, the fear etched into her features deeper with every passing day. One afternoon, I found her in the garden, clutching a faded locket. She looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. "If they take this from me, it's over. Lila's truth, our family's hope, everything." I reached out, taking the locket gently. "We're not alone," I said. "I won't let them win." But even as I spoke the words, uncertainty gnawed at me. Who could we trust? Marianne? Dad? Even Eleanor? And what if the secrets we were chasing were more dangerous than we ever imagined? Later that evening, Maya called. "We need to talk. I found something that might explain who's behind this." I met her at the coffee shop, the warmth of the place at odds with the cold weight settling in my gut. She slid an old newspaper clipping across the table. It was a report from 10 years ago about a mysterious disappearance tied to a shadowy organization known as the Veil, the same group Eleanor had feared. "This isn't just about Lila," Maya said quietly. "It's bigger. Much bigger." I swallowed hard. The past wasn't just a memory. It was a storm rushing toward us, and we were standing right in its path. That night, sleep was a distant memory. The newspaper clipping Maya showed me weighed on my mind like a stone I couldn't lift. The article was from a decade ago, detailing the disappearance of several young women, all linked, somehow, to the Veil. Lila's name wasn't mentioned directly, but the connections were unmistakable. I sat alone in my room, the dim light casting long shadows across the walls. The locket Eleanor had entrusted me with felt cold in my hand, a small symbol of a story far larger than I'd ever imagined. Why hadn't Eleanor told me everything? Or Dad? The silence between us was thick with unspoken truths. Determined to find answers, I decided to visit the local library the next day, the one place where I hoped I could uncover more without raising suspicion. Hours later, buried beneath piles of old newspapers and town records, I found a name that sent a chill down my spine: Gideon Holloway. A businessman with a spotless public image, but a whispered reputation, rumored to be the mastermind behind the Veil. His influence spread far beyond the city limits, wrapped in layers of power and secrecy. My breath caught as I connected the dots. Eleanor's fear, the threats, Lila's disappearance, it all pointed to him. On my way home, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Clara. Some stones should never be turned." I clenched my fists. But this time, I wasn't backing down. When I arrived home, Dad was waiting, worry etched across his face. "We need to talk," he said quietly, leading me into the study. He revealed a truth that shook me to my core. Eleanor and Lila's past was intertwined with Gideon's rise, a dark web of betrayal, danger, and sacrifice. I was naive, Dad admitted. I thought I could protect my family by staying silent. But now, I realize silence can be deadly. The room seemed to close in on me. The fight wasn't just about uncovering the past anymore. It was about survival. And as the walls around me crumbled, I understood that some wounds run deeper than blood. But even in the darkest moments, there's a spark that refuses to die. And mine was just beginning to burn. The weight of Dad's confession hung between us like a storm waiting to break. The walls of our home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage built from secrets and lies. I looked at him, searching for the man I thought I knew, but all I saw was a stranger burdened by guilt. "How long have you known about Gideon?" I asked quietly, voice trembling. "Since before I met Eleanor," he admitted. "I wanted to keep you safe, but the more I tried to protect, the deeper the danger grew." I swallowed hard, the betrayal stinging sharper than I expected. Eleanor's silence, my father's omissions, it all made sense now. They were trapped in a web spun long before I came home. That night, I found Eleanor sitting alone in the living room, her eyes distant but fierce. "I'm sorry," she said, voice breaking. "I never wanted you to get hurt. But the past, it follows me everywhere." I reached out, taking her hand. For the first time, I saw her not as the stepmom who opened that backpack, but as a woman fighting battles I could barely understand. "I'm here," I whispered. "We'll face this together." Days blurred into nights as we pieced together fragments of Lila's story. Clues hidden in letters, whispered warnings from Marianne, and shadows lurking just out of sight. But with every revelation came new dangers. One evening, Maya showed up at my door, panic in her eyes. "They're watching me," she gasped. "I think someone's trying to scare me off." My heart sank. The line between friend and foe was disappearing. We weren't just uncovering secrets, we were stirring a sleeping beast. And the beast was hungry. As I sat in my room, the envelope that started it all resting on my lap, I realized that the journey ahead would demand everything I had, my courage, my trust, even my heart. Because some truths, no matter how painful, must be faced. Or they will consume you whole. The threat looming over Maya was the final crack in the fragile sense of safety I had left. When she burst through my door, eyes wild with fear, the reality hit me harder than ever. This wasn't just about family secrets anymore. It was a battle for survival. We locked the doors, drew the curtains, and sat in tense silence. My mind raced, weighing every possibility, every hidden face that could betray us. But the hardest part was knowing the enemy was closer than we dared imagine. "Who do you think it is?" Maya whispered, trembling. I shook my head. "I don't know. But whoever it is, they're desperate." The next day, Dad and Eleanor sat down with us. The weight of the situation forced their usual reserve to crack. For the first time, I saw Dad's steely resolve and Eleanor's quiet strength blend into something fierce. "We need allies," Dad said. "People who can watch our backs." Eleanor nodded. "Marian isn't the only one who wants the truth. There are others, people Lila trusted. If we can find them, maybe we can fight back." Hope flickered, but it was tangled with fear. The more we reached out, the more the shadows seemed to close in. That night, alone in my room, I found a message scrawled on the mirror in red lipstick. "Stop or else." My breath caught. The game had changed. No more warnings, this was a threat. I looked at my reflection, tired, scared, but unwilling to break. Somewhere deep inside, I felt a spark I hadn't known I still had. The spark that would light the path through the darkness. Because sometimes, the hardest truths reveal the strongest parts of ourselves. The lipstick message on the mirror wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. They wanted me scared. They wanted me to stop. But all it did was ignite a fire I thought had long burned out. I sat in my room for hours, the red letters glaring at me, the letter from Lila folded beside me. I felt the weight of the past crushing down, but also the pull of the future, uncertain, terrifying, but mine to claim. Eleanor found me there and sat silently beside me. Her presence was both comforting and heartbreaking. We didn't speak at first. Sometimes words aren't enough when the walls close in. Finally, she whispered, "Lila believed in fighting for truth, no matter the cost. She wanted you to have the choice to stand or run." I swallowed my fear. I'm not running. The next morning, Dad called a family meeting. The tension was thick as we gathered around the kitchen table, the evidence spread out before us, photos, letters, maps, and messages. I contacted someone who knew Lila well, Dad said, eyes scanning the room. A woman named Camille. She might have answers, but she's cautious. We'll have to earn her trust. Maya, who had been quiet, finally spoke. We can't wait. Whoever's threatening us is getting bolder. We need a plan. The room fell silent, the weight of reality settling over us all. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed again. This time, a short video. It was a glimpse inside Eleanor's hospital room. Shadows moving just beyond the door, whispering voices, a silhouette watching. I shivered. We were being watched even when we thought we were safe. But this time, I felt something new. Not just fear. Determination. Because sometimes, when the darkness is deepest, you find the light you never knew you had. And I was ready to fight. The moment Camille agreed to meet us, I knew this was a turning point. Dad, Eleanor, Maya, and I gathered at a small cafe on the edge of town. Camille arrived quietly, her eyes sharp yet guarded. There was an unspoken history between her and Eleanor, one tangled in loss and regret. I knew Lila, Camille said softly, her voice carrying the weight of years. We were close once, before everything fell apart. She pulled out a worn photo of Lila, smiling but tired, eyes that told stories no one else heard. There's more to Lila's disappearance than you know, Camille continued. She stumbled onto something dangerous. Something that reached into places you'd never expect. Gideon Holloway isn't just a man with power, he's the tip of an iceberg. Her words sent chills through me. We tried to fight back, she said, voice breaking. But we lost too many along the way. I watched Eleanor stiffen, pain flickering across her face. Camille reached into her bag and pulled out a small, battered notebook. Lila kept a journal. It's full of names, places, threats. She wanted to expose the veil, but it cost her everything. The notebook felt like a key, one that could unlock answers or open doors we weren't ready for. As Camille spoke, I felt the weight of generations pressing down on me. This was no longer just my family's fight. It was a battle against a shadow that had swallowed too many lives. That night, alone in my room, I opened the notebook. The handwriting was frantic, filled with coded messages and desperate pleas. One name stood out. The Whisperer. Who is the Whisperer? An ally? An enemy? The deeper I dug, the more I realized that trust was a fragile thing, easily broken, rarely earned. And as secrets unravel, the line between friend and foe blurs. But I had made a choice. To face the darkness. To fight for truth. Even if it meant losing everything. The name The Whisperer echoed in my mind long after I closed Lila's battered notebook. It felt like a ghost. An unseen presence lurking just out of reach, pulling strings in the shadows of our lives. I stared at the worn pages, filled with frantic scrawls, half-hidden codes, and warnings. Lila had been desperate to expose the veil, but this whisperer, whoever they were, loomed over everything, a figure shrouded in secrecy and fear. I could almost hear a voice in my head, soft and chilling. Truth is a dangerous thing, Clara. Are you ready to face it? The days that followed were a whirlwind of whispered conversations and stolen glances. Dad, Eleanor, Maya, and I were no longer just a family fighting for answers. We were a team walking a tightrope between hope and danger. One evening, Maya uncovered a lead, a small cafe on the outskirts of town where a former member of the Veil was rumored to meet in secret. We decided to go, despite the warnings. The cafe was dim, filled with the scent of old coffee and secrets. I felt eyes on us as we entered, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. A man sat alone at a corner table, a grizzled figure with tired eyes that had seen too much. He's the closest thing we have to a whistleblower, Maya whispered. The man introduced himself as Thomas. He spoke cautiously, but his words painted a grim picture. The Veil was larger and more dangerous than we imagined. The Whisperer was a code name for someone on the inside. A spy who fed information to those brave enough to listen. But trust was a luxury none of us could afford. As Thomas leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper, I felt the walls closing in. Be careful, Clara. They're watching. And they don't forgive. That night, I lay awake, torn between fear and determination. The past was unraveling faster than I could control. But one thing was clear, I was no longer just a girl caught in a family's painful secret. I was becoming the guardian of a truth that could either save us or destroy us all. Thomas's words replayed in my mind long after I left the cafe. The whisperer, a spy inside the veil, was both our hope and our curse. Trust was a fragile currency in a game where betrayal lurked around every corner. Back at home, the tension was suffocating. Dad and Eleanor seemed to carry invisible scars deeper than I had ever realized. Their silence was heavy, and I sensed they were wrestling with demons they refused to share. Maya and I pored over everything again, the letters, the photos, Lila's notebook, desperate for a clue, a mistake we could use. But the more we searched, the more tangled the web became. One evening, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar message. Not everyone is who they seem. Look closer. I froze. Could it be a warning? Or a threat? I glanced around the room, half expecting shadows to move. That night, unable to sleep, I replayed memories of those closest to me. Faces I trusted suddenly felt different, masks hiding unknown intentions. Had someone betrayed us? The next day, I confronted Dad. Is there something you're not telling me? I asked, voice trembling. He hesitated, then sighed. There's more than one secret in this family, Clara. And some of them could break us. Eleanor appeared then, her eyes red but resolute. We all carry shadows, she said softly. But if we don't face them together, we'll be lost. I felt tears sting my eyes. The past was no longer just a story, it was a living force, shaping every moment, every choice. And as the pieces fell into place, one thing became clear. The greatest danger wasn't from the veil or the whisperer. It was the secrets we kept from each other. The silence that settled over our family was heavier than any words could carry. Dad and Eleanor, once pillars of strength, now seemed fragile. Fractured beneath the weight of untold truths. I wanted to comfort them, to bridge the growing distance, but my own heart was a tangle of confusion and hurt. One night, alone in my room, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone, snapshots of happier times with Eleanor and Dad before everything fell apart. Their smiles looked genuine, but I wondered how much they had hidden behind those smiles. The next morning, Eleanor approached me quietly. Clara, she began, hesitating. There's something I need to tell you, something I was too scared to say before. My heart pounded. She took a deep breath. Lila wasn't just running from the veil. She was protecting someone, a secret that could change everything. Who? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor looked away, pain flickering in her eyes. It's someone very close. Someone we thought we could trust. My mind raced. Was it Dad? Was it someone else? Before I could press further, Dad entered the room, his face drawn. We need to be honest with each other now, he said firmly. The shadows have been in this house longer than you realize. But we can only fight them if we stand together. I nodded, feeling the fragile threads of trust begin to weave anew. That evening, Maya called with new information. Someone had been watching Eleanor's hospital room again, but this time, they left a calling card. A silver locket, identical to the one Eleanor carried. The message was clear, we were being watched, and the danger was closing in. Yet amid the fear, I felt a flicker of determination. If the past was a storm, I was no longer willing to be swept away by it. I was ready to face the truth, no matter how deep the wounds, no matter how dark the secrets. Because sometimes, the only way to heal is to let the light in even if it burns. The silver locket left on Eleanor's hospital windowsill was the last warning we needed. Whoever was watching us wasn't just toying with shadows, they were closing in. That night, the four of us, Dad, Eleanor, Maya, and I, gathered in the living room, the weight of everything pressing down like a storm about to break. We have to confront this, Dad said, voice steady but tired. It's the only way to end it. Eleanor nodded, clutching the locket tightly in her hand. The secret Lila protected. It's time you knew. She took a deep breath and began to tell us the truth. Lila's disappearance was tied not only to the veil, but to someone we all trusted, someone within our own family circle who had betrayed them. This person's greed and power had driven Lila to flee, to fight back in silence, and ultimately to disappear. The pain of betrayal cut deep, but Eleanor's voice carried a fierce hope. I kept silent to protect us, but it nearly destroyed everything. Maya and Dad exchanged a determined look. We've found allies who can help us expose them, Maya said. This ends now. In the following days, we worked together, unraveling lies, exposing secrets, and finally bringing the truth into the light. It wasn't easy. There were moments when fear threatened to overwhelm us, and the past shadows seemed endless. But with every step, we grew stronger, not just as a family, but as warriors of truth. And then, one quiet afternoon, Eleanor handed me the letter Lila had written all those years ago. It's time to let go, she said softly. I read it again, tears streaming down my face, this time not of pain, but of release. Lila's voice, once filled with fear, was now a bridge from the past to the future.